When I married Lisa, I wasn't trying to be a hero. I just loved her. She was beautiful, kind, funny, and she had this energy about her that made me believe love could fix anything. Even her past. Even her 9-year-old son, Darren. I knew going in that she had a child. She didn't hide it, and I respected that. She told me Darren's father abandoned them years ago. No calls, no visits, no support. Just vanished. So I thought, maybe, just maybe, I could step in and be what he never was. A father. A role model. A man who showed up. At first, things were okay. Darren was cold, distant, and sometimes rude, but he was a kid. I figured with time, patience, and love, he'd come around. I took him to soccer games, helped him with homework, paid for things without question. I even asked him once if he wanted me to adopt him officially, but he said no. Lisa told me to give him space. So I did. A year into our marriage, I bought the house we were living in. Lisa had been renting a small 2-bedroom apartment when we met. I didn't want us struggling or cramped anymore. I had some savings, a decent credit score, and a plan for our future. I found a beautiful house in a quiet neighborhood and bought it in my name. Not because I didn't trust her, but because legally, financially, it made more sense. She didn't mind. At least, that's what she said. I paid for everything: down payment, renovations, furniture. Darren got a bigger room, Lisa got the garden she always dreamed of, and I got peace of mind. Or so I thought. The years rolled by. Darren grew up fast. From a boy who barely looked me in the eye to a teenager who barely said a word to me. He talked to Lisa, laughed with his friends, but with me? It was like I was just some guy renting a room in his mom's house. I tried. I really did. Birthdays, gifts, attending his school events, even staying up late when he came home from parties just to make sure he was safe. I wanted to believe that one day he'd look at me and say, "Thank you for sticking around." But that day never came. Instead, the disrespect grew. Subtle at first. Eye rolls when I spoke. Slamming doors when I asked him to turn down his music. Ignoring my greetings. Then it got worse. He'd bring friends over without asking. Leave messes all over the kitchen. Play loud music at night when I had work the next day. Lisa would try to mediate, but it always ended with her saying, "He's just going through a phase." One night, I came home from work to find Darren had hosted some kind of party. Empty bottles on the porch, girls in short dresses stumbling out, and loud music vibrating through the walls. I stood in the driveway, gripping the steering wheel, wondering what I'd walked into. I walked inside and saw him lounging on the couch like he owned the place. "Darren," I said firmly, "turn it down. Now." He looked at me, didn't say a word, and turned back to his phone. Lisa walked in a few seconds later, trying to calm me down. "Honey, just let him enjoy himself. It's just one night." But it wasn't one night. It was every week. Every time I complained, I became the bad guy. The killjoy. The outsider. Still, I stayed silent. I told myself it wasn't worth fighting over. Maybe if I just kept giving, they'd eventually see me as one of them. Then came the night that changed everything. I was walking past the kitchen on my way to bed when I heard Darren on the phone, talking to someone. I wasn't eavesdropping. He was speaking loudly, like he wanted the whole world to hear. "Yeah, once the old man's gone, this house is mine. Mom said it's been hers since forever. He's just a temporary guest." I stopped in my tracks. He laughed and kept talking. "Nah, He doesn't even know I'm planning to take over. Might change the locks myself someday. I backed away slowly, went upstairs, and sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. I didn't say a word to Lisa. I didn't sleep either. My heart wasn't broken, it was hardened. That night, I realized something important. I was no longer the man of the house, that I was a stranger in a home I paid for. A man tolerated, not respected. And I knew, right then, that something had to change. But not with yelling. Not with threats. No, this time, I would let the truth speak for itself, and when it did, it would tear their little fantasy apart. They thought they could kick me out? They had no idea what was coming. After that night, everything I looked at in the house felt different. The walls, the floors, even the air felt colder. I stopped trying to be the peacekeeper. I started paying attention instead. Watching. Listening. Darren got bolder with each passing day. He acted like he was the landlord now, like he was waiting for me to vanish. He walked around with his chest out, barking orders, talking down to me in my own home. Lisa barely said a word about it anymore. It was like they were both in on some secret I wasn't part of. They had already written me out of the picture. One morning, I came down to the kitchen to find my coffee machine missing. The one I bought. I asked Darren where it was, and he just shrugged and said, "Maybe you should start bringing your own things. Not everything here is yours, you know." That was it. That was the moment I made up my mind. I went to the study that evening and opened my private drawer. Inside was the original deed to the house. My name clear as day. Not Lisa's. Not both of us. Just mine. I had kept it safe all these years. Never thought I'd need it to prove anything. I never thought the people I welcomed into my life would turn me into the enemy. I made copies and kept the original locked away. I didn't plan to say anything yet. I wanted to see how far they'd go. The answer came soon enough. It was a Saturday. I came home from the store with a few groceries and saw my things. My books, shoes, toolbox, even an old jacket I loved, stacked in a box by the front door. I stared at it, confused at first, thinking maybe there was a leak or some reason everything had been moved. Then Darren walked in, arms folded, wearing that smug expression I had grown to despise. Lisa followed behind him. She didn't look at me. "What's going on?" I asked. Darren leaned against the wall and said, "We've decided it's time for you to go." I blinked. "Go where?" He shrugged. "Anywhere but here. We think it's best. You've made things tense, and honestly, this house belongs to Mom. You've overstayed your welcome." I turned to Lisa. "Are you serious right now?" She bit her lip. "It's just... Darren's right. You've been acting distant, cold. This isn't working anymore." I stared at her. The woman I loved. The woman I thought would grow old with me. I felt something crack inside, but I didn't let it show. I nodded slowly. "Okay," I said. "Let me just grab something from the study." Darren chuckled. "Don't take too long." I walked away without another word. In the study, I opened the drawer, pulled out the deed, and held it in my hand for a few seconds. I felt strangely calm. When I returned to the living room, they were both still standing there, waiting for me to beg or argue. I didn't. I simply placed the papers on the coffee table. "You might want to read that," I said. Lisa picked it up and unfolded it. It only took a few seconds before her face drained of all color. Darren looked confused. "What is it?" She handed it to him in silence. He looked at it, then looked back at me. "What's this supposed to mean?" It means, I said quietly, this house is mine. Bought and paid for by me, in my name, before we ever got married. You wanted to kick me out of my own home? Now you're about to find out what real ownership means. Darren stepped forward. You're lying. Mom told me she's had this house forever. I shook my head. No. She lived in a rented apartment before we met. I bought this house. I paid every dime. I furnished it. I renovated it. I built this home from the ground up while you disrespected me every step of the way. Lisa finally spoke, her voice trembling. We didn't mean to, but I raised my hand. Save it. You made your choice. I picked up the deed and walked past them both. I won't be the one leaving. And in that moment, the house felt warm again. Because I knew the truth. I held the power they thought they had stolen. And the next move? That was mine. I gave them till sundown. No shouting. No begging. Just a quiet, firm deadline. By the end of the day, I wanted them gone. Lisa tried to talk to me privately while Darren was upstairs sulking. She followed me into the kitchen, eyes wide and watery, trying to touch my arm like nothing had happened. You don't have to do this, she whispered. We can talk. Maybe we just misunderstood each other. I looked at her, really looked, and I realized I didn't recognize her anymore. This wasn't the woman I married. That woman used to smile when I walked through the door, used to lean on me during the hard times, used to talk to me like a partner. But now she looked more like a stranger who stood by and watched her son treat me like garbage, and who joined him the moment it was convenient. You stood there, I said, my voice low, while he tried to throw me out of my own house. You let it happen. You agreed with him.
Her voice cracked. He's my son. What was I supposed to do? You were supposed to be my wife. She looked down. For the first time in a long time, she had nothing to say. By 4 in the afternoon, Darren started realizing I wasn't bluffing. He went from cocky and arrogant to angry and loud. He slammed his bedroom door, cursed at the walls, stomped around the hallway like a child throwing a tantrum. He still thought this was a bluff, that I'd back down, but I didn't. At 5:30, I called a locksmith. A quiet man in his 50s showed up with a toolbox and a calm attitude. I greeted him at the door and led him around the house as he changed every single lock. Front door, back door, garage, even the windows. Darren came down halfway through and exploded. "What the hell are you doing?" he yelled. "You can't do this. This is my house too." I didn't even answer. I just looked at him and said, "You have 1 hour left." Lisa sat silently on the couch, a duffel bag at her feet, watching it all crumble. I could see the regret on her face, but I wasn't moved. Not anymore. By 6:30, the locksmith finished, handed me the new keys, and gave me a small nod before leaving. I stood in the living room, holding the keys in one hand and the deed in the other. I turned to them both. You wanted me out. You thought you had the upper hand. But now you can go live the fantasy somewhere else. Pack what you need. You're no longer welcome here. Darren tried one last time. You can't kick us out. I'll call the police. I smiled. Please do. And when they arrive, I'll show them the deed and the proof of ownership. You're both adults. You have no lease, no legal claim, and you tried to evict me. It'll be my pleasure to let them escort you out. He stared at me with pure hate. But hate didn't scare me anymore. I had lived under his disrespect long enough. They packed their bags. No hugs, no final words, just dragging footsteps and bitter glares as they walked out the door. I locked it behind them. That first night alone was quiet. Too quiet, but peaceful. I poured myself a drink, sat on the couch, the same couch they tried to kick me off, and stared out the window as the sun disappeared behind the trees. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was free. Over the next few weeks, I started fixing the place up. I threw out everything they left behind, painted the walls, changed the furniture, turned Darren's room into a reading room. Lisa called once or twice, but I didn't answer. She left a message saying she was sorry and that she hoped I could forgive her someday. But I wasn't interested in closure. I wasn't interested in pretending everything was fine. I had given them a home, my love, my time, and in return, they tried to erase me. I heard from a friend that they were staying in a relative's cramped apartment across town. Darren was jobless, broke, and bitter. Lisa picked up part-time work and stopped talking about marriage altogether. I guess reality finally caught up with them. Me? I started over. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I learned something important in all of this. Sometimes the people closest to you will take you for granted until you remind them exactly who you are. I tried to be the nice guy, the patient father figure, the silent provider. But the moment they mistook my kindness for weakness, they lost everything. They thought they could throw me out of my own home. Instead, I threw them out of a life they never deserved, and I haven't looked back since.